everybody, I'm Dave Dishner and we're in the Claremont Inn kitchen today.
And I'm Carmela Burton and I'm here to help Dave.
Okay, great. Well, welcome everybody. What we're going to be doing is we're still working on our dinner party recipes today. The mushrooms are going to be stuffed with a little bit of hot, spicy Italian sausage. We're going to use some shallots, the mushroom stems, and some fresh basil to make a great filling for these mushrooms. So the first thing we have to do with the mushrooms is clean them. You can either brush them with a dry brush and get all the growing matter off of them, or because we're going to be roasting these after we have stuffed them, we're just going to rinse them today and get them nice and clean. Then we'll break the stems out of them, and we're going to be using the stems with the shallots and the sausage to make a great filling for our hot and spicy Italian sausage stuffed mushrooms. Okay, while Carmel is washing the mushrooms, I'm going to go ahead and get the Italian sausage ready to brown. We just need to slip it out of its casings because we are going to brown this first in the skillet to start our stuffed mushrooms. We only need about 3 of these for the mushrooms today, but we're going to go ahead and cook them all off because we always like to be efficient, and we're going to have some sausage for a wonderful Italian frittata one of these mornings here at the Claremont Inn. After we get the sausage browned up, we'll be adding the shallots and the mushroom stems that we're going to chop nice and finely, and that's going to make the filling for our stuffed mushrooms today. Okay, now we're going to get all of our ingredients prepped up together. The first thing we're going to grind up in the food processor are some day-old focaccia bread, because we need a little bit of breadcrumb to bind all this together. The second thing we're going to run through the food processor real quick to get everything the same size is going to be our chopped shallots. And Carmela has got all of our mushroom stems out, so they will go through there, and we're going to get the shallots and the mushrooms ready to go because we're going to saute them in a little oil and butter. Okay, there is our ground breadcrumbs and our chopped shallots and our chopped mushroom stems. Okay, here we have our browned Italian sausage. Divided that in half, and we're going to go ahead and pulse this a couple of times in the food processor so it has the same texture as our mushrooms and our shallots. Okay, here we have our chopped mushroom stems and shallots in a little bit of butter and olive oil. We're going to saute this together until it's nice and cooked. Carmel is going to season that with a little bit of salt and pepper to start bringing up the flavor. Okay, and while our mushrooms and shallots are simmering away over there, we're going to take some fresh basil. We're just going to roll it up here into a cylinder and chop it nice and fine so that we can sprinkle that in. And the last ingredient that we have to add to this is a little bit of Parmesan or Reggiano cheese. And then our mushrooms are going to be ready to stuff. Okay, Carmel, as you can see here, we've got the mushrooms and the shallots cooked nice, and we've got a bunch of the wonderful brown stuff stuck to the bottom of the pan. And here's a tip that isn't in the recipe, and you know what that's going to be. We're going to deglaze the pan with a little bit of white wine, and that'll bring up all of the wonderful flavors that are on the bottom of the pan and give a little sophistication to our dish here. And we just want to let that cook together. We've cleaned up the bottom of the pan, we've deglazed the pan, and now we're just going to let that alcohol cook off the wine, and that's going to give us a wonderful flavor in these mushrooms and shallots. That just takes a couple of seconds because that pan is hot. You can see all the liquid is just about evaporated and the flavors moved into our mushrooms and shallots. And now we are ready to assemble our mushroom stuffing. Okay, we've got our chopped sausage in the food processor cup. Now we're going to add the mushrooms and shallots. And our breadcrumbs. And we're going to pulse this together a couple times in here to just make sure everything is the same texture and consistency. And we're going to sprinkle in our fresh basil, and then we'll check our seasonings before we're ready to stuff. Okay, we've got everything chopped up really nice to the same consistency. We're going to top it off with a little bit of salt and a few cracks of freshly ground black pepper. And the very last thing we want to put together in here is some shredded Parmigiano-Reggiano cheese. And we're going to sprinkle that in here and run it on the food processor a couple of times. That will bind everything together so it sticks together. And then we're ready to stuff our mushrooms, Caroline. Okay, it's mushroom stuffing time. We've got our mushrooms all cleaned up and lined up on a plate here. We have our mushroom filling ready to go. And we're just going to take these over here and spoon some filling into these, pack it down just a little bit. And once we get them all topped on here, Carmela, we're going to top them off with a little bit more Parmigiano-Reggiano cheese just to make that presentation just right at the end. And you know, our deal at the Claremont Inn is always to have recipes that we can do the messy prep ahead of time. And these are a great recipe for that because as you can see, we're going to have these all stuffed and topped and in the fridge and ready to pop in the oven right before our dinner party tonight. And here we have our Italian sausage stuffed mushroom caps topped with some Parmigiano-Reggiano cheese ready to go in the oven.